and welcome to our flip video lesson, Life in Ancient Egypt, lesson 4.03. There are 2 parts to this lesson. Your Human Odyssey reading pages for the first part are pages 109 to 115, your student guide workbook pages 102 to 104, your OMS assignment is just your lesson, and then about the topic, the social pyramid of ancient Egypt. Our learning objectives for today, at least for the first part, explain how archaeologists and historians have learned about the daily lives of ancient Egyptians and list examples of everyday life in ancient Egypt. Lesson Introduction: Life in Ancient Egypt. Do you like to play board games? Do you enjoy boating or going on picnics? Do you like dressing up for special events? Many ancient Egyptians enjoyed these activities too. Ancient Egyptians enjoyed music and they kept pets. They wore clothing made of linen and loved perfumes. How do we know so much about people who lived thousands of years ago? Because they covered the walls of their temples and tombs with scenes of their daily life. The social pyramid. Egyptian society had less gender-based inequality than the Mesopotamian society. In some cases, a woman might serve as high priestess in Egypt, a powerful and influential position within the temple. The pharaoh was the most important and was believed to be a god and possessed powers. Aristocrats and nobles were government officials and priests, including the pharaoh's most trusted advisor, the vizier. Scribes were people trained to read and write. They were valued members of society. Artisans were people trained for a specific job: doctors, artists, metal workers, architects, merchants, the Egyptian middle class. And then peasants were the largest group of Egyptian people: farmers and homeless peasants, and slaves. Egyptian society, and then here's just kind of a hierarchy of basically what we just went over. So you can see the pharaohs are up here at the top, the viziers and priests, the scribes, the craftsmen and artists, the peasants, and then the slaves and the servants. And as we've talked about in many of our civilizations that we're going to be learning about, this hierarchy existed across the world in civilizations we'll study about. So now you can go ahead and open your student guide to page 102. And again, this is one of those in your book that doesn't have a bunch of writing space, so you may want to grab a piece of paper. Number 1, list some examples of everyday life in ancient Egypt. So you can just paraphrase some of these. They enjoyed outdoor activities such as picnics, sailing, water sports, hunting, waterfowl, and fishing. Children played with board games, dolls, tops, or leather balls. Pets included dogs such as the greyhound and tabby cats. Well-to-do families attended banquets. Men wore skirts or robes, while women often wore dresses. They did their hair up in plaits or curls, and the wealthier citizens even wore elaborate wigs. Both men and women outlined their eyes with paint and wore lots of jewelry made of gold, silver, copper, shells, and semi-precious stones. They also wore perfume. Musicians played harps and lutes. The Egyptians ate meals with their fingers. They ate such things as fancy cakes and antelope and gazelle meat, and they drank fine wine made from grapes. Question number 2. How did archaeologists and historians learn about daily life in ancient Egypt? They found scenes of daily life on the walls of temples and tombs. Comparing Egyptians in everyday life. So you can go ahead and pause this and fill in this chart in your student guide on page 104. So entertainment, dress, work, food, and then other. And then you can compare and you can look at the difference between the wealthy Egyptians and the average Egyptians. Here we come to our reading section. Again, make sure you have pages 109 to 115 read. It is super important that you do keep up on your readings. And then our important vocabulary words to understand. Carefree means free from anxiety or responsibility. Leisure time is time when one is not working or occupied, their free time. Linen are pieces of cloth woven from flax. And then import means to bring goods or services into a country from abroad. Introduce an idea from a different place. And here we come to our quote section. Luxury is more deadly than any foe. And that was said by Juvenal. And then we're actually not at our end because we do have part 2 to our lesson, How Many Kingdoms? This is part 2 of 4.03. Your Human Odyssey reading pages, you need to read page 117, just to the part that starts with disruptive pharaoh. So only read to that part, or you can read ahead if you would like, but for this lesson, that's all you need to read. Your student guide workbook pages 105 to 108, your OMS lesson, and then this is a brief overview of the kingdoms of Egypt. Our learning objectives for this part: analyze timelines to determine how historians categorize the history of Egypt, and recognize key events of the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms of Egypt and the surrounding world at the time. Lesson Introduction: How many kingdoms? Historians divide the Egyptian civilization into 3 distinct periods: the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. During these periods, powerful dynasties ruled, strong governments developed, and pharaohs built lasting monuments. Sometimes historians include a 4th period, the Late or Decline period, when Egypt's power began to ebb, meaning when Egypt's power began to slow or go down. And so 3 kingdoms of Egypt. So remember, time is always moving forward. Anything BC or BCE is comparable to a negative on a timeline. And so here's just showing the timeline of the pre-dynastic, Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, and New Kingdom. Guide questions. Once again, there's not much space to write, so you can get an extra piece of paper if you would like. You're going to turn to page 106 in your student guide. And as always, remember, you can always pause this video if it's going too quickly to fill in the answers or to check your answers. So what are the 3 main periods in ancient history? We've got the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. And you'll notice some of these dates may vary a little bit depending on which source you look at. So they are a guesstimate, a close estimate of where the time frame would be. Question number 2, what are some of the Egyptians' most important accomplishments during the Old Kingdom? Khufu's Great Pyramid and other pyramids at Giza were built. Question number 3, what were some of the Egyptians' most important accomplishments during the Middle Kingdom? Egyptians conquered territory to the south and traded with lands as distant as Syria, and they greatly extended the realm of their influence. And question number 4, in which kingdom did Hatshepsut rule? That's such a fun history word to say. She ruled in the New Kingdom. Question number 5, name 2 male pharaohs who ruled during the New Kingdom that are still famous today, and that's King Tut and Ramses II. And King Tut, the full name is King Tutankhamun, but we have shortened it through history to King Tut. You can go ahead and turn to page 107 in your student guide to get ready to fill out the chart. This is one where you will most likely need to pause this video and you can fill this information in. Kingdoms of Egypt. So we've got the Old Kingdom, pyramids at Giza were built, the Sphinx were built, hieroglyphics were first widely used, papyrus was first used as a writing material, and the embalming process started. Middle Kingdom, pharaohs encouraged trade, irrigation techniques improved, the first tombs were built in the Valley of the Kings, and Egyptians took control over Nubia. And then the New Kingdom, pharaohs worked to strengthen Egypt's empire, Hyksos were driven out, Akhenaten attempts to revolutionize religion, King Tut becomes pharaoh, Tutankhamun displays the wealth of the era, Ramses II builds monuments and temples, and Egypt's first female pharaoh, Hatshepsut, rules. And again, you can always pause this video to fill in your answers. Mental math using timelines. So how long did the Old Kingdom last? How long did the Middle Kingdom last? And how long did the New Kingdom last? So if you take the time frames, the time periods in this map, or this this chart, or again, some of these time frames are a guesstimate, so a close guesstimate. The Old Kingdom was 505 years, the Middle Kingdom 205 years, and the New Kingdom 484 years. How many years passed between the uniting of Upper and Lower Egypt? For the Old Kingdom, in about 3100 BC, to the Persians' takeover of Egypt after the New Kingdom in 525 BC, that was over 2,500 years. And again, this is on page 108 in your student guide. And then let's put these into perspective. The United States became a nation in 1775. How many years has it existed as a country? So about 245 years, and that obviously was from 2021. So let's update that. So that should be about 240. 6-ish years. All right, so you need to read page 117, again, just to that disruptive pharaoh. And then our important vocabulary words to understand: unite, come or bring together to form a unit or whole, especially in a political context. Control means the power to influence or direct people's behavior or the course of events. Revolutionize is to change something radically or fundamentally. And embalming is to preserve a corpse from decay, originally with spices and now usually by arterial injection of a preservative. And here we come to our quote section. History is a pact between the dead, the living, and the yet unborn. And that was said by Edmund Burke. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know this was a little bit longer, on the longer side of the flip video, since we combined 2 lessons. I appreciate you sticking with me, filling in your student guide. As always, stay positive, stay fighting, stay brave, stay ambitious, stay focused, and stay strong. Have a great day.